Welcome back to Blockstream Talk. Today we're speaking with longtime Liquid contributor and founder of Vulpem Ventures, Marco Argentieri. Marco is a prolific software engineer and entrepreneur, and the guy behind a number of Liquid tools and projects, including Marina Wallet, TDEX, Fuji Money, and Liquid Taxi. In this episode, we touched on the importance of covenants, aka smart contracts, and discussed various layer 2 solutions like Liquid, Lightning, and Arc. We also discussed what the future holds for Bitcoin and Liquid, and how the current Bitcoin narrative of digital gold could evolve going forward. If you found the conversation useful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Hi, Marco. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Maybe to start off with, can you give us a bit of a background? Let us know how you got into computer science and how you got into Bitcoin.
Sure thing. I was in high school and I was doing in high school and working, and also I already started programming in my spare time. I discovered Bitcoin mostly because it was easy for me to buy video games on Steam. At the time I was accepting Bitcoin, and using the Russian store, I could be able to pay much less. So this was my intro to Bitcoin. I didn't care about Bitcoin or money in general, but was a very geek or a nerdish thing to do, and was even helping me to save some money. So this has been my intro. But then I said, okay, wait a second. Why I'm not using PayPal? Why I'm not using any other fintech company at the time, 10 years ago? So I said, very interesting. So I said, okay, I want to work on this, and let me explore a little bit. I started, as a freelance. I was tweaking Bitcoin Core for other, at the time, altcoins, and I'm talking about 2013, 14. But then, I really get into the Bitcoin monetary part. And then in 2017, after working many other startup or companies around the world, I decided to co-found Vulpem Ventures, and Vulpem is basically a Bitcoin company. So I'm very happy to work full-time on this.
Oh, that's great. Since joining Bitfinex Securities, I've noticed that there's a really strong Bitcoin community in Italy. Of course, Paolo, our CEO and CTO is Italian, but there's a lot of other Italian kind of on the developer side, and then also on the investment side. I didn't realize that before, but it seems like Italy especially has a really strong Bitcoin community.
100%. I think like Bitcoin Italia, which is 5,000 members, I think it's very remarkable number of Bitcoin only follower. So I think that's a really great thing. And to be honest, I think now Austin maybe is the capital of Bitcoin, they say. But in 2016-17, Milan was the capital of Bitcoin. Every month there was a meetup. There was people like Andrew Polstra and Andreas Antonopoulos coming to Milan, and Peter Todd was living there for a while. And of course, Giacomo Zucco has been like the leader in this and trying to bring this initiative forward. So yeah, I'm very happy and very surprised when I travel around, living Italy and see how big the community is there.
Yeah, that's very cool. So you touched on briefly Vulpem Ventures and the projects that you guys are working on. You're working on a bunch of different layer 2 projects on Liquid and on Lightning. Can you talk a little bit more in detail about what you're trying to achieve with Vulpem Ventures?
Sure. I think like before getting into what we do, I think like the goal for us at the beginning was, okay, we there is Bitcoin, and Bitcoin definitely win the saving battle. Maybe not everyone already agreed or already believe in this, but we really think that Bitcoin is really the best gold out there. But we really think that commerce and finance are much bigger opportunity there, and we really think that we can use Bitcoin as a base infrastructure to reinvent and re-architect finance. And that's why we say, okay, you cannot do this on the first layer, right? For many reasons. So you need scalability. And that's why we are working on second layer, because is the tool, is the way to achieve what we think our vision is. So, but yeah, just going back to what Vulpem does is more like a venture builder. So what we do, we invest engineering time, advisory, and also capital lately in a couple of ventures per year, 2-3 partner per year. So we are not really like looking for many partners, but we just try to select, and we work with them with a multi-year vision to help them to drive their Bitcoin vision And so again, we deploy our engineering team most of the time, but also capital when we can.
And how do you identify opportunities? Is it the financial layer that particularly interests you, or what do you think are the big opportunities?
Yeah, again, I think like the two main pieces are on a side. We really believe that we need to bring back the commerce that was the early killer feature of Bitcoin. Unstoppable commerce. I think that's one thing. And of course, now you need really scalability in component to achieve this vision. That's why lately we have been like looking at many other second layer scaling solution. And the other side, I think financial derivatives, financial contracts or derivatives are very, very interesting. And if you can remove as much as possible trust to this process, and we can be the pioneer and be able to create a platform for that, I think that's will be very, very interesting for us to be there, to be the first to build this.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the specific tools and projects that you've been involved in? Maybe Marina Wallet, TDEX, Fuji. Can you give a little bit of an overview into what those do, and then what the kind of the thinking was behind them and the opportunity for those as well?
Absolutely. I think we've been like starting working on Liquid very early, I think from 2019, 20. And we realized, it was very interesting platform compared to all other blockchain that were out there. But we saw there was a lot of tooling missing, a lot of interesting primitives that you must need when you want to bring to production financial application. So, for example, we started with Liquid Taxi, which is a service that allow you to pay for fees on Liquid just using Tether. So, imagine you are a Tether-only wallet. Well, you don't need to pay for LBTC or what people are used. Maybe, they call it gas fee in other blockchain. You don't need that. So you can really have a Tether-only wallet. So we built this and we've been operating since 3 years now. Then we saw that it was very interesting to have a sort of browser extension wallet that will allow developers to iterate faster on their web application, to not every time to build their own wallet, right? So they just want to have a wallet that pops up and ask you for confirmation for spending a transaction, very similar to what MetaMask is in the, let's say, Ethereum world. So Marina has been there since 2020 as well, and TDEX, which is a project with our partners, and we've been open source contributor to that. And the idea of TDEX was like, okay, let's take the OTC desk and request for quote style trading and trying to use atomic swap on Liquid. And also that I've been live since a couple of years, learning a lot from many partners and trying to talk to many companies about that. And the latest project, also Fuji, which we launched last year, is a Bitcoin-backed stablecoin, which means that we use a series of covenants, what cool kids call smart contracts, on Liquid to regulate the issuance and the burn of the stablecoin. And this stablecoin is always over collateralized, which means that as long the amount of collateral is there is the same supply of stablecoin circulating in the market, similar to what is MakerDAO maybe originally in Ethereum, and has a very interesting cool property that you cannot replicate on a EVM or Ethereum style chain.
What was it that drew you to Liquid initially, to start building on top of Liquid?
Actually, we started looking at Lightning in 2019 when it was ready. But we saw that it was very hard for us to capture any valuable market share, in the sense that either you became the next Stripe and then you became a custodial payment processor. So then, okay, you can capture value, you can capture some profits out of Lightning, but it was very hard for us to justify to deploy our engineering team or building things for Lightning in the end, because in the end it's very limited. You can only do payments. I mean, I love it. I use Lightning every day. I use it with Bitrefill every day because I really get the point. But as a company, we didn't saw the value for us to build something that we could self-fund in the first thing, because again, Vulpem Ventures is self-funded, so it's not never raise any VC round. So it was very hard for us to justify. So that's we said, okay, but Liquid is very interesting because actually cater to inter-exchange settlement, right? That was the initial, let's say, promise back in the days. And we said, okay, maybe exchange are profitable business, and they may be interesting in more R&D or more sophisticated tooling. So that's why we started working on Liquid, and we really think that now has been a really good choice so far, because it allowed also us to test bed all these covenants proposal that are coming out, and we have been able to have a team that is at the edge compared to the rest of the ecosystem.
I saw a presentation of yours online, and it started off with a slide that says Liquid sucks. So I wanted to ask you, what are some of the misconceptions about Liquid? We touched on this last week when we had a conversation with Samson about maybe creating some Liquid FUD dice. What are the things that you think people think about Liquid but get wrong?
Yeah, it's very interesting because that was a Liquid Federation meetup, actually. So, and wasn't not meant to be public. No, I'm joking. I knew it was recorded.
Well, I found it on YouTube. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think like the Liquid Federation put it online. I think, my side, I wanted to attract attention of the audience, and also I think people that know and already work in the Liquid ecosystem already know very well what I do and what Vulpem does. So it was very funny because he said, okay, if even Marco is saying Liquid sucks, there is an issue. I wanted to attract a little bit of attention, so it was just a joke. But actually, if you go forward in the presentation, I said no, I'm joking. Actually, I think it's a really great ecosystem. My presentation was more about trying to get a narrative, because Liquid is very good for many things, but if you know, most of the time, if you sell to everybody, you never sell anything, right? So you really need to a little bit of focus, and you really need to get the ecosystem to be very focused on 1-2 use case. And that was my presentation back in 2021, I guess, on what I thought at the time was necessary for Liquid Federation. The narrative of Liquid should have been focused much more. So that was the idea. And in general, my side was like, we should focus on developer. We should make it super easy for every new developer coming from other chain to build on top of it, because this way you get more brain power, more ideas. And that's maybe 9 out of 10 ideas are dumb and they never will reach product market fit. But the combination of this create momentum, and definitely creates also potentially the 10th out of 10 idea that then can become the killer app.
And that was kind of the idea behind building all of these tools that can then be used by other developers on Liquid.
100%. And we saw a lot of times people coming to us, especially from an hiring standpoint, because they maybe already use our tool, open some pull requests to our open source tool. And in general, a lot of our partner came or know us through our open source work and developer tooling. So I think it's a nice way to basically show what you can do, and in general also a way to increase the number of people you can hire, the number of people you can work with, and the new business that can born right from this tooling.
You mentioned Liquid Taxi. I think that was, speaking of Samson, I think that was part of his new Aqua wallet. Is that correct?
Exactly. So I think Marina has been integrating Liquid Taxi since the beginning. Of course, we try to dog food our own thing. We have been deploying in a, let's say, white label scenario with two enterprise customer back in the days. And yes, I think Aqua is the commercial wallet now integrating. So I think it's has been a good call back in the days, and I'm very happy that has been useful for wallet developers.
So I think recently we've been hearing a lot of people talking about different ways to stack Bitcoin. For example, doing Lightning withdrawals from the exchange, and then use something like Bolt's exchange to stack to Liquid Bitcoin, as you mentioned in your own cool self-custody. How do you see these sort of solutions developing in the future?
I'm super bullish about this use case, and I've been one of really pushing this use case to friends and partner around, because I think like in the end what we saw is Lightning became this sort of lingua franca. Like it's the connecting tissue between like exchange, custodian, small wallets, which is very easy, right? So you don't need to join a federation, you just need to open a channel, this is much better than, for example, joining the Liquid Federation in terms of process, because it's really almost open, right? And everybody with some Bitcoin liquidity can do it. And I really think that Lightning is great when you do server to server payments, right? So when you go, from example, from Bitfinex, you do a Lightning payment directly to another server, which in this case is Bolts, that does trustless atomic swap. So you can really receive from an exchange without having a Lightning node, but use Lightning as a rail to do this. And it's very interesting, because you can really increase the various, let's say, custodian or sidechain or federation that they're popping up. So I think that's super valuable, and I really see this as becoming a standard.
What about layer one scaling conversations and some talk that's around that? What do you think about covenants? And what do you think have been the more interesting conversations and proposals that have come up recently?
I may be biased on this side. We've been very close to Burak, and we have been giving a grant last year to Burak to keep building on Arc. And I think Arc is very interesting because has a different scaling approach to Lightning, and is very more close to what we believe back in the day. So I think it's great to have a digital gold narrative, but at the same time, we really believe that we should go back to a more commerce, unstoppable commerce kind of narrative. And I think Arc has the possibility to do that because you don't only scale payments, but you scale Bitcoin transaction in general. So you can do escrow. And back in the days, everybody was using Bitcoin escrow and was one of the killer application, right? So I can trade with anybody. I can do e-commerce without trusting nobody. I just have an escrow that allows me to do any type of exchange in real life. But this doesn't scale, and when Bitcoin started becoming more used, was evident that this was not possible to do on chain. And I think like second layer proposal that not only solve the payments issue but solve in general any type of Bitcoin transaction. Well, those are very interesting for us, and we really want to be part of it and try to drive this forward.
What do you mean by sharing UTXOs, and how do covenants make that possible?
Sure. I think sharing UTXO is possible already with Bitcoin. You can imagine you just create a lot of cosigner in a very big multisig. This sounds very very easy, but actually this means that you must be a server, right? People use mobile phone, they go offline for a bit, and they will lose the possibility to keep creating the new state, right? Because imagine that when you share a UTXO, it means that you have one UTXO on chain, but actually there are many slices that that are owned by different people. And how you make sure that everyone can send this share to someone else, or get out of that share, or enter. So you can do that already with Bitcoin, but again, you need to be online. You need to every minutes potentially sign, which is very improbable and unlikely. Instead, covenants allow you to do this in a more, let's say, non-interactive fashion, which means, again, I don't need to be online. I can just send some transaction, and sending a transaction to an address, the address already has encoded all the future execution, let's say, logic to be already in that address. And these allow to do offline protocols, or in general to do protocols that are easy to build or to run on a mobile phone or a browser, which is what most of normal people use, right? Nobody is a Linux system administrator, and it's very hard for that.
So you think eventually the narrative will come back to peer-to-peer digital cash? We've kind of went from peer-to-peer digital cash to digital gold, and then maybe we come back in the end?
I hope so, in the sense that this is my personal vision. I think like in the end, like it's very, very valuable to have a better digital cash. This is very, very useful. For sure, you can use potentially liquid, you can use maybe federation, but the market basically spoke already, and is using other chain at the moment to solve this commerce issue. And I think this is a problem, because I really think that we was very, very, was already a killer feature. So I'm not saying was something never been possible, but was possible when there was scale, right? When there was throughput, and you can use the chain to do that. And it was very easy. You just get an address, you send this Bitcoin transaction, boom. This is amazing. This has been like the best user experience you can have for, open, borderless, and, international payments you can have. So I think it's just a matter of scaling, and new proposal regarding covenants attack this point as well, right? So they don't keep it out of the discourse. So I think it's very exciting for me. A new wave coming back to Bitcoin.
Do you think it's scaling? I guess it's scaling, but it's also, as Bitcoin gets bigger and then the volatility starts to decrease, maybe that's a kind of a natural evolution that happens, and then people go back and use it for remittance more. I remember when I first got into Bitcoin, there was a lot of talk about using Bitcoin for remittance markets, right? There was, to the Philippines and countries like this. And after Tether came onto the scene, because it had lower volatility, it kind of took over that market. So do you think eventually Bitcoin gets to a point where the volatility decreases and then it will just naturally absorb that market, or reabsorb that market, I should say?
I think it's very interesting because back in the days, remittances was one of the main use case, and I think like when you basically have at the edges someone that is exchanging for you cash for Bitcoin, Bitcoin for cash in the local currency, that is not a big deal. The volatility even now, but even in the future, if the let's say volatility will try to trend to an equilibrium, it will never get to be, I think, stable, because stability is an artificial construct. Only human central banks can do that. So my take actually is like, sure, Tether will be still and will always be one of the solution, but at the same time, I foresee using covenants to create some sort of more index, synthetic index. So maybe you have a basket or maybe fiat coins, fiat stable coin like Tether, or maybe other asset that you're tracking real world value, maybe with oracles, things like that. Very similar to what I think we were experimenting with Fuji at the beginning of the year. I think that will be the natural scenario. So you have something else, some IOU with different degree or of trust and many trade-offs, and potentially with covenants you can even do it in a trustless way. So yeah, very excited to see how to fix this. But yes, for now, Tether is definitely the king on this and is solving real problem, because when you go to Turkey or when I go to Dubai, or you really see people, you see bazaar around Istanbul, like with exchanging Tether for Turkish lira. So I think that has been a real use case in real life.
Yeah, I sometimes think people in North America and maybe kind of the West in general don't appreciate how widely Tether is used in the rest of the world. I'm based in Asia, of course, and Tether is just very dominant here and used all over the place.
No, absolutely.
One of the things that's kind of characterized the last 6 or 12 months has been an uptick in transaction fees. How do you think that's influenced the other Bitcoin layers over the last 6 or 12 months?
I don't think like directly influence, especially liquid. I didn't. This is my take. I don't think it didn't influence right away, but I think like the fact that people recognize that on a high fee scenario, lining has some issue, especially in a self-custodial way. This brought, let's say the Bitcoiners, so people that were very, very fond in lining, because we always see things inside our bubble, but from outside, people don't even knew that was lining, people outside Bitcoin. So I think these people, our people, Bitcoiners, said, okay, lining is not the panacea, it's not like the one solution for everything. So they started looking more into liquid. So I think a lot of people coming from, let's say, not even touching liquid, because I don't see the problem. I don't see the solution that is solving me. Because when fees were very low, of course, was no need, no reason to look to sidechains or to federation. But now people started recognizing that this was like necessary. And yeah, so I think this has been the main trend so far.
Okay, we've seen an uptick in liquid network capacity in the last couple of months as well. Do you think it's those fees that are pushing that up, or do you think it's just broader kind of general adoption of liquid?
Yeah, I think for sure a lot of Lightning node routing nodes and operators, they have a choice now, either to pay 10x to their 10x the fees compared to their competitors that maybe are using a custodial liquidity provider, or liquid, which is let's say a federated, is not really non-custodial, right? But at the same time, is much better than using a custodian that is basically doing for you the liquidity, solving the inbound liquidity. So I think all these businesses that are already running big routing nodes, they understood that liquid can be a nice way to rebalance the channel. And I think that has been the main use case I saw so far. And Bolts has been a great driver for this use case, because they have been already very big in the Lightning node, router operator community. And so I think this for sure has been one of the use case. So I think, yes, this has been the main driver so far.
Another kind of misunderstanding I wanted to touch on about liquid too is what do you think? People often confuse, or there's misunderstandings around elements and liquid. Can you explain the difference between the two and provide a little color on that?
Sure, absolutely. I think elements is really just software. It's an open source software. Anybody can use it to create a Bitcoin-like network with more capabilities. Be it asset, be it covenants, be it, confidential transaction. Then Liquid is the first production network that is using elements. So I think like it's more easy to understand elements is like Bitcoin Core. It's just a piece of software. And then Liquid is actually the name of the network, which is a federation with more 100 members, and Vulpem is part of it. But anybody can really spin up his own federation. Even recently, last year, Blockstream even released open source the functionary code, which is the code that is needed to run your own block producer in a Elements blockchain. So I think now really anybody can take it and do their own network if they wish.
Great. And another topic I wanted to cover with you are Bitcoin atomic swaps. I understand that you have a new project out called Vulpem Banco. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's been, as I said before, we have been very, our company, we always try to do a lot of research and development on many things. And again, covenants are very cool and very hot topic. And we started with the idea to see what we could do with CTV, because I've been pioneering and very expert with covenants and Liquid in the last 2 years. But on Liquid, you really have like very full recursive covenants. So you have very lot of capabilities. And CTV is a very, let's say, streamlined and very little covenant proposal, in the sense that what you can do is much more limited than what you can do on Liquid already. And so we said, okay, again, I really need to put my hands on something. So with the team, we decided to start researching what we can do with CTV. And I think, like, for now on Bitcoin, the main driver, I will not say the main driver, but the community is very interested in privacy. And we said, okay, CoinJoin, the user experience of CoinJoin or PayJoin, or in general privacy preserving techniques are very clunky to use. You need to download a specific wallet. You need to use that specific wallet provider. I don't know, like, it's very custom, and I think this limits the adoption, right? So people should be able to use their own exchange if they wish, or their own Bitcoin wallet. They don't need to have a purpose only, like a specific wallet to do this, and should be super easy, just sending to an address. And I think covenants help with this. Covenants allow you to encode this logic that you want in an address, and then you can print this address, on a screen, on a phone, and everybody sending to that address then will trigger some sort of execution. And we started seeing what we can use CTV for doing this, to make it super easy, CoinJoin or PayJoin, but actually CTV was not good enough, not practical enough. And so we said, okay, let's go back to our, what we know. And we said, okay, let's build it on using elements, opcodes, which allow you to do recursive covenants. And we realized that doing this was not only a privacy preserving tool, but was especially much better trading protocol as well. So you can swap not only Bitcoin for Bitcoin, but you can swap Bitcoin for Tether or Bitcoin for Fuji USD, right? And vice versa. And I've been working with TDEX and other atomic swap in the last 2 years. I really recognize how a little change just doing a covenant protocol will improve a lot the user experience and the cost of operating, for example, a trading desk on top of this atomic swap. So we really believe that on a side is a good test bed to see, hey guys, if we have recursive covenant, if you have elements introspection of code on Bitcoin, we can do a much better privacy preserving tool here. Or right now we can deploy it on Liquid and do a much better trading protocol that allow everybody to just scan a QR code. So you don't need a special wallet, right? You don't need TDEX, you don't need SideSwap, you don't need a specific wallet that support that protocol and talk in the back with a server, things like that, like it works right now. But you simply send Tether to an address and then you will receive Bitcoin. Simple as that.
What do you think is, when you meet young developers or people that are interested in Bitcoin or new to Liquid Network, what do you recommend to them as a place to start?
First of all, becoming a software engineer is hard by itself. Starting, especially in the Bitcoin space, it can be even double harder. So I think in general, what we see when especially we hire new engineer in our team, we try to hire people that potentially are already senior software engineer and they want to learn and they're very interesting to change, let's say, career or change field. Or we are, let's say, junior mid developer, but they already are in the software engineering. So I think that's first step is very important. Otherwise, will be a little bit hard. That being said, you should not only be a software developer. You can just be, for example, an architect or a protocol designer. And maybe that doesn't really, it's not really important to have previous experience as a software engineer. But yeah, like what I recommend really, I think like, yeah, Bitcoin itself is very interesting to start playing with. And liquid is the most similar thing you can get in terms of, let's say, other places where you can do more things, right? Because a lot of times you start with Bitcoin, you say, okay, cool, I can send and receive my savings, and then they switch to Ethereum or to any other chain because as a software developer you want to build things and you feel that Bitcoin is not expressive enough for you. So I think like before just dropping Bitcoin and go to other chain, maybe try looking on Liquid as well, because you can really do anything you can do, for example, on Ethereum, and maybe even much better. Again, I think it's just a tooling mismatch and also a little bit of marketing compared to other chain. They have heavy pockets.
A little bit, just a little bit.
Yes, exactly.
Do you have those conversations with people doing smart contracts and other protocols, and how do those conversations typically? I think the narrative is that there's a wide divide between people who use Ethereum, for example, and people who use Bitcoin or Liquid. And I've actually found that when I introduce Liquid to people who have built things on Ethereum, they're often curious. A lot of them didn't actually even know that Liquid exists or that you can do these things on Liquid. And once they dig into it, they're actually kind of curious and interested. So I find that maybe that divide is not as big or as deep as I previously thought. What do you think about that? And have you had those kind of experiences as well?
No, 100%, 100%. And I think like for us, it's much easier to get someone that already has some, let's say, Ethereum exposure in terms of as a software engineer, because of course a lot of concepts, a lot of way of thinking are already explained, let's say, especially when we want to work on some covenants or some covenant protocol on Liquid. But yeah, like it's very common. It's very common. You see developer that start right away with Ethereum. I think like especially in the Bay Area, there is a lot of community, a lot of push is in having this developer and bright software engineer to work and start working on Ethereum, not even touching Bitcoin. So I think, yes, we need a lot of, let's say, narrative push in trying to tell to people, okay, Bitcoin is not only boomer money. Like I always hear this word, like it's not only boomer money. I mean, yes, maybe, now you can do limited things and scalability is an issue, but I think having these people, trying to reason about Bitcoin UTXO model is very useful. So yes.
All right. Well, you're involved in a lot of different things in Bitcoin and Liquid and Lightning. What gets you most excited about kind of Bitcoin generally in the next 6 months or 12 months?
Again, I think ARC is very interesting because it's bringing back this digital cash narrative finally. And again, it's not only for payments. You can scale almost any type of transaction, Bitcoin type transaction type. So yes, I'm really looking forward to see how ARC evolves, and ideally, what will be the initial production use case this year. And yeah, I'm super pumped about this.
That's great. Well, appreciate your time today, Marco.
Yes, likewise. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.